Deutsche GOLDMESSE Fireside Chat special here in Frankfurt. We're at the West End Grand. My name is Kai Hoffmann. I'm the CEO of the SOAR Financial Group, and I'm excited to be hosting this Fireside Chat together with Egon von Greyerz. He's the founder of Matterhorn Asset Management, and Peter Spina, founder, managing director, partner, publisher over at Goldseek. Peter, it's great to see you. Egon, of course, as well. The second time we're doing an interview together, so it's good to see you again. Thank you for staying in Frankfurt. Thanks for supporting us. Really appreciate it. Let's have a fun conversation here. This is a Fireside Chat. This is a podcast. Let's make this dynamic and engaging. So feel free to jump in when somebody says something you agree or don't agree with. And let's start with a zoomed out view. And Peter, I'll start with you. Try to describe the world to us right now that we're looking at without spending 20 minutes on it. Try to give us a bit of a summary.
Well, things really changed and the timelines have accelerated after the war in Ukraine started. This is not your typical proxy war. This has really divided the world in a much more significant way. So it's some people have called it not Cold War 2.0 or the freezing war. So it's really creating a two different spheres in the world. You've got the Western side, and then you've got Russia, China, the BRICS, and so on. So there's a lot changing right now, and a lot of it comes sides are kind of being chosen, and there's a lot of things happening geopolitically in a very accelerated manner right now, which is changing the entire setup, which influences the dollar supremacy, how the world sees the dollar in the U.S. So there's now a lot more significant. I believe it's more. The war in Ukraine has spread out into the financial, economic, monetary side, and that's now what we're seeing happen. Is that there's more and more conflict happening, and that's going to be more of this theme that we're seeing unfolding right now.
No, the main topic of conversation, of course, gold. Where is it going and heading? So, going to pick up on a lot of what you have just said. But Egon, yesterday you said, well, you've been saying the same thing for almost 25 years. And then this morning on stage during my opening remarks, I mentioned, well, you might have been saying it because I was quoting you on stage, but it felt like, and you said it as well, the timeline has accelerated dramatically.
Well, you can explain that scientifically, of course. I don't know if you've seen this experiment. You fill a stadium with water, and you start with 1 drop, and then 2, and then 4, and then 8. A minute. And then how long does it take to fill the pool or the stadium? So people can take weeks or months or so, but it takes 45 minutes. In the first 40 minutes, after 40 minutes, the pool or the stadium is only 7% full. And in the last 5 minutes, it goes from 7% to 100% full. And that's obviously what we're going to see here now too. So exponential moves. And you can see that again in German Weimar Republic hyperinflation. How it was gradual, and then all of a sudden 23 is accelerated to ridiculous levels. And so that's what we'll see. Also, you're right; it's going to go faster. But the outcome to me has always been clear. Since we started worrying about gold or about the world 25 years ago, and decided that the best way, the consequences of what's going to happen in the world will be that money will be destroyed, as it always has in history, and so that will be the same this time also. And therefore, the best protection from a wealth preservation point of view is gold. And of course, now we're going into that final exponential move, and it's going to go faster. You're absolutely right. So there'll be more panic, there'll be more higher interest rates, higher inflation, until sadly even this monetary system collapses, which everyone has down throughout history. So that's why it's easy to forecast. It's only the timing which is hard to forecast. But I think we're getting near.
It's interesting. It might have been Matthew people who said it. I might be wrong. But it felt like we only had like 3 massive geopolitical events or so per year. Now it feels like whenever I open Reuters, for example, there's something happening every day. That might be an exaggeration, but it just feels like, as you said, it's faster paced everything now. The other question is, what's the role of social media in this? Like, you're really active on Twitter, for example, Pete. Is that fuel to the fire? Because everybody's now chasing the next headline. It feels like sensationalism, clickbait, things like that. Does that play a role? I'm curious.
Sure. I think, just looking back when I first bought my first stocks in the mid-90s, you would have to call up the broker, and the broker would have to make the trade for you. And then the online trading came, and instant access to trading. Now, information is also spreading at a very fast rate, so it can quickly before the gatekeepers of news and information could kind of manage it and spin it around. But now the information is starting to spread out and get out there in different ways. So things are spreading and things can happen a lot more in accelerated timelines. So yeah, I think, but it is difficult to know what the truth is. There's a lot of disinformation, a lot of difficulty in knowing what the truth is, and I think that's one of the biggest challenges is trying to understand what the truth is, because there's a lot of intentional disinformation services out there. So one has to be very careful on trying to figure out what's going on.
Egon, like one question I had yesterday, and I think I spoke with somebody about that as well, is the role of China in the whole gold market, but also global market. And I had a conversation with a fund manager in Amsterdam the other day. And he said, because he lives in Hong Kong, he's like, we're giving China still too much credit right now. How would you place China in the global scheme of things? And are we exaggerating the role of China right now?
Well, these seismic changes take time. They don't happen overnight. So China, the whole of the power, the balance of power is shifting from west to east. That's clear. Absolutely clear. But it's going to be a gradual process. But we're seeing the fall of the West now. That means total decadence, just morally, financially, politically. And gradually, which we talked about in also speeches yesterday at the conference, the whole the BRICS moving south and east. You've got the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which covers a big part of Asia and that part of the world. That's where the power is moving now. But it's not going to happen overnight. Empires don't fall in one day. But this is the fall of the Western Empire. There's no question about it. No empire has ever lasted. And at some point it will have shifted over to the east. As I said, in maybe 50 or 100 years' time, our grandchildren or great-grandchildren, they're going to be au pairs in China.
You said that you got a few laughs actually during your presentation, yeah.
So and that's what's going to happen. The West is going to be poor. Europe's going to go downhill, and America is going to blow up or decline rapidly. Also, again, you just have to look at history. If politicians or economists, if they ever looked at history, they would realize that we can actually use history to tell what's going to happen next. You can't say when exactly, but the trend is clear. And China is going to be a dominant factor in it. The only risk with China, of course, is that you get a revolution in China and China breaks up, and then it will take longer. But Asia is still going to be very important. And so is South America, and so is long-term Africa. Yeah, so these shifts are taking place. So whether we give China too much credit now, yes, it's not going to happen overnight. They're not going to take over. But gradually it will happen.
Okay. You mentioned South America, and I saw an article on your website actually this morning. There was a post from Bloomberg actually. Bolivia is starting to sell its gold. Not sure if you had a chance to read it this morning. I'm sure it was maybe a team member who posted it. But I followed up this morning. I was reading it, and I put it into Google News. I typed in Bolivia gold just to get the original article. And it showed me two things. One, it showed me the article you posted. But then 6-8 weeks ago, it said, well, Bolivia just decided to buy gold. And now they did a 180 and they're selling gold. So the point I'm trying to make is they're selling their gold to get US dollars.
Yeah.
It sounded like the start of a death spiral for the country. Do you want to give us some perspective on that? Because I think it has interesting implications.
Well, we've seen a similar situation happen in, I believe, in Ghana, where they're buying 20% of the miners' production and then giving them local currency so they can use the gold to purchase oil and use it as a currency internationally, because they are having a dollar shortage. So one way to avoid a dollar shortage is to go into gold. So they have they've pegged the dollar there, and that's they're running low on their dollar reserves, and people have been pulling out dollars. So Bolivia is in a difficult position with their dollar reserves, so they are using gold to buy themselves time. So they're monetizing gold. They're returning gold as money, and we're seeing more and more of this. This is going to be, I think, a growing trend, especially with gold producing countries, where they can take the local producers' currency, metal, and then give them local currency, and then use the gold in an international sense as money, as currency. So it's an interesting new development over the last several months. We have with Ghana, with Bolivia. We'll see more countries do this as they have different problems with their currencies. But it is unfortunate. I think some of the, you do face greater gold confiscation or nationalization risks down the road as some certain countries destabilize and they don't have enough reserves. So gold becomes their next target.
Can you speculate on who's buying that gold? Where are they selling it to?
That I'm not sure. I mean, they may just be selling it to the market, or they said they're going to use it to trade it internationally. So I'm not. I just started following the Bolivia story the last several weeks, watching their dollar run happen locally, and now with the gold news.
No, interesting. We were chatting yesterday as well. Is there a mandate for Eastern countries to buy and Western nations not to buy? Because it's kind of obvious that all the countries east of Germany, including Poland, are buying gold. And I think Ireland started as well. I heard that the other day. Yeah. But no other Western nation is actually buying gold. You posted about Canada, obviously, not owning any gold, which is hilarious. Think about it. Yeah. So maybe to pick up that question is there a mandate? And why did the Western nations don't own gold?
I don't think there is a mandate, but because it's just that the West has been in this debt situation where it's now growing exponentially, and therefore they forgot about gold, and also the propaganda is such that gold reveals the deceitful actions of governments. And that's why the West doesn't really want to talk about gold ever, and never. No, it's not like China. They tell their people buy gold. You'd never hear any government in the West ever talking about gold because everybody sold gold and they're not thinking about buying it back because they only want to print money. That's easier for them than actually buying gold. Whilst the tradition in the East has always been to have gold both for individuals. And now for governments also. And I think this is also, again, that's why we see this shift. The clever people or the wise people, that's where gold is going, and gold is going to the East. And this is why gold is now going to be much more important in the world economy, because now you're talking about a lot of natural resource-backed countries which are actually going to dominate the world economy. You take Russia, it's got 85 trillion worth of natural resource reserves. That's tremendous. So, if they get their leadership right one day, and maybe together with China, that's going to be an incredibly strong economy. And of course, they are the third largest gold producer, Russia.
I think the second, China, Russia, they're right up there.
Okay. Now you make some interesting points I want to follow up on. So Egon, you said countries start buying gold. It seems like the government are admitting their mistakes, right? Is that the reason? So my question is now, if there is a signal, maybe that's a question for you, Peter. If a Western nation starts buying gold now, are they undermining the credibility of everything they're doing?
Well, I think, as you said, gold is the nemesis of the Western countries. It's the truth seeker. It really reveals. The dollar is the gold standard to the West, and they don't want that dominance taken away. So gold isn't the friend of the dollar, and then they perceive it differently. But as you're saying, I think it's very important is that the power, everything's shifting to the East, and the culture and the values and the tradition and everything is gold, favorable to gold, and they're the ones that are buying it. They're saving in it, and they're being more conservative. Or in the West, we're living off borrowed time, unfortunately, and we're making. I find it very unfortunate because we have this horrible mentality in the West of just live for today kind of, and where the East is planning for the future. That's
a big difference. The gold is eternal money, and it's nature's money, and it's the only money that's ever survived in history. And again, look back at history. You know that gold is the only money that is going to remain when everything else goes to zero, which it has throughout history. So they know that in the East. They understand that. In the West, we don't. We think that the printed money is going to buy us power and prosperity. But it ain't. And that's what's happening now. And this is what always happens at the end of an empire. And we are seeing the decline of the Western Empire. And it is as Hemingway says, you go bankrupt first gradually and then suddenly. And the suddenly is coming pretty soon now, in my view. We don't have to wait that long. Still a matter of years, but still it's going to accelerate.
Okay. Excluding war, you guys see a scenario where the West could actually stop its downfall? Is there a scenario in your mind where we can actually, maybe turn the ship around? Is there a way of being currency or, and I purposely might exclude war because that's a different style of it. Currency-wise, is there anything they could do to stop it?
I think what you said about the values being cheapened and the internal decay, what's happening, that has to change. And I don't see that's happening right now. Everything seems to be, the values are being cheapened. It's not just the Federal Reserve cheapening the dollar or their currencies and printing all this stuff. And actually, I would say that the central banks have been influencing these cheapened values in society and culture, because if you have easy money, people don't value things. They don't appreciate things, and everything's just easy money. People don't really want to work now these days, or they feel entitled to all these things, and it's a very bad mentality. So the underlying problems are much deeper than financial. It's their moral problems and cultural issues that the trend is not. That would have to change, I think. And where you see in the East, and I living in Eastern Europe. And when I had traveled to Asia, these people are hungry. They want to build things. They want to do things, and it's just such a different energy, such a different mentality that I see in the West. And that's that competitiveness and that those trends that's not in our favor right now.
Okay. No, we are now at as I said before, we are in the final stages. We are in the 40th minute when still the stadium is only 7% full. But, the last 5 minutes, it will just fill up. And that's these exponential moves. They're unstoppable. There is no way that they can be stopped. It's much too late. And the only thing that the West knows, of course, and Western central banks, is to solve a debt problem with more debt. And we know that you can't solve a problem by the same means that created in the first place. No. And that's why they will print more debt, and money will just finish that move to zero, which we know is inevitable.
Yeah. Well, one big word, a buzzword slogan has been used as the big reset, the great reset, depends on who you talk to. Is that a big currency reset? Like, let's hit zero and try to create some value again, even backing it with gold. Is that an option?
Well, they'll try.
I'm just looking for scenarios where we can maybe stop the downfall.
They will try.
Right?
They will try. The US will try. And they'll force Europe to agree with that, or the rest of the world will ignore it. Just they ignore the U.S. sanctions against Russia, and they will create the digital currency maybe, and then they will put the debt separately. Say we forget about the debt, but because we have a new currency now, and they cheat the people again. It's still only fiat money, paper money, and if they actually manage to implement a temporary reset by doing that, it's going to fail within a year or two again. So in my view, the real reset is a disorderly reset, not an orderly one. And that's what's going to come at some point, sadly.
Peter, you're American, so it's a good question for you as well. June 1st, the U.S. could go bankrupt, theoretically, if they don't raise the debt ceiling. So the question is that, there's discussions going on, but it seems like nobody's taking that discussion serious. Because I first heard about it in April, and it's slowly popping up again, but only in connection with Mr. Biden's schedule is quite full, so I'm not sure if he can manage. Yeah. That's the only context I'm hearing about it, so it seems like a non-event. Yeah. So I'm curious, is that a non-event at all? Because it could have huge implications, but nobody's talking about it.
Yeah, I think it's just everyone's become so faded by these debt limits. I don't know, 150, I don't know how many times we've hit it. It's kind of a fake imaginary line they've created. The real issue is going to be when the bankruptcy that the country is financially tens of trillions of dollars in debt, when you can no longer finance it at these low rates, or no one wants to buy your debt, and now all of a sudden you have a real sovereign debt issue. And then we are starting to see the problems with debt emerge in different parts of the economy. But as far as this debt, June 1st deadline, I think everyone and myself, we just become so jaded by all the prior limits, and they'll come together, make an agreement, and it'll be fine again until it's not.
It's a farce. It's political posturing. That's all it is. they will always increase the debt limit. Everybody knows that. So that's a nonsense. It's just to put a little bit of pressure on the parties, but they know that they're not going to go bankrupt today or tomorrow. Their bankruptcy will most probably be the debasing of the currency to zero. That's the bankruptcy, rather than declaring bankruptcy.
Yeah, for some reason, all the questions keep coming back to the U.S. It's still the main market. It's an empire still, right? But interest payments on debt are another topic. I think we're going to breach $1 trillion in interest payments for this year alone. When is that going to be a political issue, and when will the last drop sort of fall into that bucket, as you put it? So when will the last drop be added to that bucket and it's full, and eventually become actually a political nightmare as well? Because repaying that debt will become an issue.
Well, they'll never be repaid. As I said in my presentation, if you take the U.S. again, the debt has grown since 71, whatever it is, 57 times, and tax revenue has grown 8 times. So they'll never be repaid. And interest rates, in my view, the down cycle finished a couple of years ago. We had the long cycle from 1980 to beginning of the 20s here. And we have a long cycle up. No, I wouldn't be surprised to see them up at the levels that I remember, especially when I lived in the UK in the 70s. Near my first mortgage was at 21%, and not many people would cope with that today. But so I think the central banks will lose control of interest rates. I'm absolutely certain, and the debt sell-off will be such that interest rates will just go up. Nobody can stop it. They'll try to control the short rates, but they will fail with that too. But the long rates will pull everything up. So that's going to make, of course, it just needs more money printing. They need to print more money for the interest, and they can never print enough to repay the debt. And this is this final vicious circle at the end of a monetary era that was going to take place in the next few years.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. Gentlemen, I think we're out of time. It's been fantastic chatting with you. I really, really appreciate you coming into Frankfurt. You from Prague, you're from Switzerland. Thank you so much. It's been tremendous. You have your keynote in a minute here as well. Looking forward to that. And appreciate it. Thank you so much. And thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Kai. Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, everybody else, thank you so much for tuning in. Fireside Chat special here at DEUTSCHE GOLDMESSE with Mr. Egon von Greyerz of Matterhorn Invest and Peter Spina of Goldseek. We hope you found this conversation insightful. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and leave a comment. Thank you so much.